Hey there, I'm Tim. I'm one of the partners at Paragon Partners. And in this video, I'm going to go over some of my greatest hits. That is items I didn't spend that much money on and I expect to make a lot, but actually I made more and more than I expected. So a nice way to do things. The first one are World War II photos. Now, most people think of World War II photos as the famous battle scenes, but I picked up photos from people's estate sales of their grandfather and great-grandfather, and it was just the humdrum beat of life, what they're doing on the bases, the CBs in operation, and just bulldozers making runways and other things like that, of just ordinary GIs working in the field. And those photos, when I've had collections or even albums which told someone's whole story, I've sold for significant money. It's been kind of fun. Second are inspirational CD sets. And also throw in cassettes also work in this genre. When I say inspirational, I mean, I'll give you my best example. I bought a CD set. It was a Sylvia Browne, the famous psychic. And it was 8 CDs, and it was priced as $1. But everything was half off that day, so I got it for 50 cents. And no kidding, I sold it for over $80. I mean, one of my highest ROIs ever. You can imagine turning 50 cents into $80, if you could do that all the time. Now, it needs to be inspirational, but it can either be spiritual or religious. I find other genres, such as, say, like money or cooking or, say, foreign languages don't work as well. But when you get into spiritual and self-improvement, that seems to be the most popular genre within this, and people are willing to spend money on still. So next one are train locomotives, specifically O-scale, or O-scale is the bigger one, and more so if it comes with the coal car. Now, I'm aware that there's a whole genre of this between the Marks and the Lionel and pre-World War II and so on and so forth. And I know a little about it. If I knew more, of course, I'd be able to do better picking on it. But I've had instances where I picked these up at garage sales from anywhere between like $1 to $5, and I sold them for $30 to $50 each. Now, it's really helpful. I have a little O-scale track that I have powered up, so I can go ahead and test it and say that it's running. And even when I've had these not complete, I've still sold them for like $30. So this is one I've done pretty good on. Speaking of locomotives and O-scale track. Now, this is another one that people just think are junky. They'll throw all these into a box, and I bought boxes and boxes of these. And one thing I do is I have my nephew, I pay him to go through and sand down the track when it's all rusty, so it gets it looking good. And then I've been able to make money on it, especially some of the other components too that go up. So if you have some of the switches or some of the light poles that go onto the switches, those also add money. But a lot of times I've bought at garage sales, a good sized box of this for $5, and I've been able to part it out and make like $80 on it. So it's worked out well. Next are old Pong games. Now, remember, these are the first wave of video games ever. I mean, I remember playing these in 1977, and we thought these were the bomb. People still want these, and if you get them in the box with the original manual, that's even better. But I bought these at garage sales for between $5 and $10, and I sold them for like $50 to $75 when I've had the box. People really dig these. I mean, I think it's a bunch of old guys like me who want to go back to their childhood. They love these, and so they want the original. So they purchase these Pongs. Others just think they're relics. Another item are refrigerator shelves and drawers. Now, get this. So I have a rental, and the fridge, one of the rentals, was burned out. So I hired a firm. They do appliance recycling. All right. So they put in a new fridge for $200. And they asked, what do you want to do with the old fridge? So what I did with the old fridge is I took out all the drawers and shelves in it, and I said, okay, take the old fridge. So they took it away for me, which is pretty good because it contains Freon. So I got all the old drawers and shelves home. I washed them down, and then I sold them on eBay, and I made $170. on this old fridge that wasn't working anymore. And I'm thinking, okay, that's not too bad. Like I said, the new fridge cost me $200, and I got $170 out of the old fridge, so I only had to pay $30 net for that fridge. Now, of course, you have to get the dimensions right and know the model number that's coming out of, which makes a lot of difference. So people can mate it up to their own refrigerator. But especially when you have glass shelves, a lot of time people, they end up breaking the glass, and so they need new ones. Or on the drawers, they end up, since they're plastic, they end up breaking those as well. Next. I'd say 1984 and previous computers, or even better if it's pre-1980. Now, a couple of times I've been able to pick up Apple II Pluses and IIe's at the swap meets and garage sales, and I've never gotten less than $200 for them. I've had other instances where I bought 286s and 386s, and people just think they're old relics and yesterday's junk. But I've been able to pick up big money for them. I actually picked up this really, really huge tower set just for a couple bucks. I mean, it was like the size of a spare tire. It was that big. And I sold it for $170. And the guy, he just wanted the tower out of it because he's going to go ahead and put an old computer into it. And that was just for the tower itself. Now, of course, when you're getting pre-84 computers, there's a whole genre there of course, the Commodore 64, the TI-99, the Atari 400, 800, 5200, old-time Sinclairs. There's a whole wealth of computers. So just as the IBM PC came in, and before that, you know, I bought those cheap because people think that they're cheap. And I've been able to make pretty good money on them. You know, I'll say another one that goes with this, or the old monochrome monitors as well. People like the green ones better than the yellow ones, but people want the full system. And so those old monitors, if you can test them and show that they're still working, those do pretty good too. Next is vintage board games. Now, I seem to do better with 1975 and previously. Now, one big thing with board games is you have to know if it's complete or not. And that can be a pain, especially when they have a lot of cards, a lot of pieces. And there are websites which catalog the full inventory of games. But even when they're not complete, they can still go for good money. I mean, I just had this game, only had the board for it. It was like Walking to Jerusalem. It was a Christian game based upon biblical quotes. And I picked up the board as part of a larger set. So for me, the board was nothing. And I sold it for over $35. So a lot of times, of course, these older games, people think that they're junk. I mean, I sold a 1950s Chutes and Ladders version. And I bought it for $3, and I sold it for about $25. And I did pretty good on it. So old games can do pretty good as well. Next. Speaking of games, the localized versions of Monopoly. So you may have seen this, that people make up Monopoly based upon towns. I've seen it New York, LA, Denver, Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland, Miami, so on and so forth. So I picked up these games for pretty cheap, and I've been able to sell them for $25 to $35 a pop. Now, I don't come across these often, and one not so good thing is the smaller the town, the less your audience, so the longer sale you're going to have on it. But these local versions of Monopolies, I think everyone wants to collect items of their town. And so I've done better on these than I've ever expected. Next. Oh, okay, so I don't mean New Coke. What I mean are retired products. And New Coke is a big example. I mean, if you're able to pick up New Coke now, which is 30 years old, I mean, you got gold. I mean, think back to the 70s. If you still had cans of unopened Billy Beer, you'd be set. Even if you had just the open can, you're set. Now, I realized the power of this when I bought some feminine hygiene products. And, of course, what do I know about that? And I put it online, and I sold the box for $50 in less than 4 hours. I couldn't believe it. And I've seen this, like sometimes old detergents, old gums, retired teas. those can all do well. So any product which is has been retired and is no longer selling can be a hit. Next are Catholic medallions. Now, two things about these. It's not infrequent that these medallions were often made with precious metals. So I picked these up before when it's been sterling silver, and so the silver content's worth like 17 bucks, and the person is selling it for $2. So just right there, I'm making good money. But of course, there's a whole genre within these Catholic medallions, and of course, the more obscure the saint, the higher that can be. And no one's really thinking a lot on these. And so I've done pretty well on these Catholic medallions. Next. Oh, another thing, old vintage lampshades. Now, of course, since these were glass, not as many of them survived. But I picked up old lampshades of all sorts of sizes, and I can pick them up for between like 5 and 10 on local sources, vintage shops, and garage sales. And I've been able to sell them for 30 to like 60, 65 each. Now, of course, these are a pain to pack, but I definitely make more of a multiple than I ever expected. You know, I think people, they want that whole retro look, and they want the actual vintage lampshade that goes with it. Next. So these car CD players. Okay, so you think now with modern iPods and, of course, electronics, CD players wouldn't have any action. But every time I pick these up, I've actually done pretty well. So I think what happens, of course, is people, their old one doesn't work. They take it out. They have a hole in their car. And so they want a new CD player. And I've been able to pick these up pretty inexpensively at garage sales and at thrift stores. Now, the one pain about these is that these work off 12-volt systems. So you're going to need a 12-volt adapter to go ahead and test it. But you go ahead and do that and just show it lighted up power and it's working. Then you can be onto something. So I bought these for between like $3 and $5 a pop. And I've actually sold them for up to $100. In fact, I don't think I've ever sold them for less than 50. So when I get these, I do it. Like I said, you just have to be aware of the testing requirements. Next. Oh, so this is my last one, are vintage globes. So I think it's a little more to understand this one. But if you have an older globe, and especially with countries which no longer exist, people like those. They kind of like to see the change of the world. And same thing, I picked up globes from old schoolrooms, and I picked them up at garage sales and thrift stores for just, they can be a bit more. I mean, they can be around 10 to 20, but I've sold them for between like 50 and 100. And of course, globes can be very ornate and very decorative and have a lot of functionality. And the more you have, the more value you can have. But I've made a good multiple on selling these old vintage globes. All right. You hear this at every video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If there's anything you think I missed or you have your other great finds, I'd love to hear about them. Thanks.